Welcome to Retro Spectrum, the podcast where we listen to every band's every album and then talk it out. This episode, we are covering all of the albums by the band Chumbawamba.
Or Chumbawamba, if you're feeling it.
Yeah, if you go solely based on spelling.
Chumbawamba, actually. You know, it's interesting that the band name brings to mind chum, right?
Like fish food?
Yeah, and literally the only thing about this band that I think that I disliked is that one song that has the barfing at the beginning, which I'm pretty sure is an actual recording of someone actually vomiting. I don't do vomit, so
I have no recollection of that song.
Oh, really?
At all. Yeah, that's kind of the downside of this one. There were 15 albums, and it's, I don't know, over 200 songs, I think. So it was high volume in this episode.
But high quality also, so.
Surprisingly high quality, I have to say, from top to bottom.
I came out of this episode being a huge Chumbawamba fan, so yay, Chumbawamba.
We're ready for the resurgence of Chumbawamba, so keep your eye on the horizon for that, because I'm sure it's out there.
The world needs you, Chumba. Chumbawamba rocks.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna try
all right. I've been
to figure out how to say Chumbawamba.
No,
Chumbawamba.
it's just Chumbawamba. No,
Wamba.
It's not Chumbawamba. No,
Yeah.
You're gonna sound insane if you do that.
In the documentary,
No,
that's what they were saying. Wamba.
No, they just have British accents.
Chumbawamba. Wamba.
Chumbawamba.
You're saying Wamba.
I'm saying it like it's supposed to be said.
Yeah, Chumbawamba.
How would you say it otherwise?
I used to say Chumbawamba.
That's literally how I'm saying it.
I'm hearing Chumbawamba when you
I
say it.
think you're hearing what you want to
Wom or wum? Subtle
hear.
difference.
It's spelled Wom, but I think you got to say Wum. I think you're gonna go crazy trying to say Chumbawamba.
Chambawamba.
But Chumbawamba.
Today we're discussing Chumbawamba. So I had my next band pick.
Yeah.
But after listening to Chumbawamba and hearing some of their references and shit, I kind of am having a last minute potential change of plan.
Well, save it till the end because I have thoughts on that as well for
and I don't know if
the Wheel of Death pick.
Should we tell each other both of our picks and then decide which one together?
No. Make your own choice. I think you have to make your own choice and live with it. But I came to a conclusion, and I think it will have repercussions for the rest of the show.
No, I hope it's not the one band that I don't ever want to do.
In a good way. In a good way.
Okay, good. Yeah, I might have to do like what you did last time and flip a coin. But the thing is when it connects to the band that we just talked about, it's like so fun that it makes me want to do it more, even though I had a different plan for a totally, completely different person who will be really good when I choose them. And I wanted to choose them this time. You
can save them for later or whatever. But
this other band that I also want to do connects to Chumbawamba. And so, yeah, maybe I'll choose them.
You got to say Chumbawamba. Nobody's going to be on your side if
an
you change
anarchist
how you
would pronounce it differently every time.
Okay, so first off, I want to say you're welcome.
Yeah, for real. Thank you.
How overly surprised by this were you?
I'm shocked. So shocked. Yeah, so I thought that you were choosing this band as like you're this season's They Might Be Giants type pick, because you threw They Might Be Giants at us right at the beginning of last season, and it was like sort of as a joke punishment. And
it was like a test of our endurance, like a proof of concept. Are we going to commit to do this? Because if we can make it through all those albums, we can do anything. We can listen to anybody.
Make it through anything, including Bruce Springsteen.
It's on the list. I'm not saying I won't do it. I'm not looking forward to doing it, but I can, and I know that I can.
I will do anything as well, but there is one band that I specifically do not want to do, and I've been trying really hard not to even think of their name, so I don't telepathically put it in your brain somehow. But yeah, anyway, I thought this was going to be like just a jokey, stupid pick, and I thought it was going to be just as annoying as They Might Be Giants. And boy, was I wrong. I was so wrong. Like, I'm completely taken by surprise by Chumbawamba. Like, they're such a good band. I love them.
I
I'm like a little bit obsessed with them now.
I was thinking like, is this my new favorite band? I've been researching all morning too, and I'm like, oh man, there's still more stuff. Like I'm going down other rabbit holes. I found spin-off bands. There's like all the other stuff that they're involved with. I gotta get in on it. This and They Might Be Giants. We're both more out of curiosity than a sense of punishment or like doing something that's not gonna be fun. They like almost come from the exact same place of I know some things about this band. I've heard more about them than I've actually listened to them. And you always hear every time Chumbawamba's brought up that like, oh, they're anarchists, and it always comes back to anarchy and they're an anarchist punk band and all this stuff. And I've heard that ever since Tubthumping came out. And anytime anybody talks about them, they always mention that. But I had never actually listened to any of the what was supposed to be the anarchist punk songs. I don't think I'd ever actually heard any other Chumbawamba song.
I would argue that they're all anarchist punk songs. And I didn't even like remember that they were like you're saying you had heard of them more than you listened to them and it was all anarchy related. I like didn't even remember that aspect of them being a band. And I don't know if that's because I was like in the punk scene at the time and like so surrounded by the idea of anarchy regularly that it just didn't really register or something, or like stick in my memory. Carr had that album, and as before we started this listen, I thought that I only remembered Tub Thumpin', but once I got to that album, I remember every single song off that album. So we must have played that album on repeat, and I called Carr to discuss it, and they were like, yeah, we played that a lot. And the songs on it are really good, so it makes sense. But yeah, so that was like my only memories of Chumbawamba was that one album, listening to it a bunch at the time that it came out. Other than that, I hadn't really listened to anything else that I can recall, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, pretty much from the first song on the first CD, I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be good. I think we've hit on something worthwhile here.
Yes. So same with like the first song of Patti Smith. It was
Yeah.
a similar feeling to me on the first Chumbawamba song. Like my note was, wow, didn't see that coming. It really hit me right away too. So I feel you.
But it would really depend on which album, like, we start at the very beginning or whatever. If we would have started on the first song on some other albums, it
I
maybe
agree.
wouldn't be, you wouldn't have had that feeling. Like if we would have just started with Tub Thumper, like I think it would have been like, whatever, this is whatever. But going all the way back to
Agreed.
the beginning, like way different vibe. So they had 14 albums, 2 EPs, 3 different comps. There was a soundtrack. I didn't find or look into the soundtrack, so I don't know what that's all about. And a couple of live albums. Did you listen to any of the live stuff?
I listened to all of it and it was all really good. Like one of the live albums might be my favorite of all the albums. I didn't know the soundtrack thing. I didn't realize there was a soundtrack.
There are a lot of live YouTube sets, like the entire set is recorded from all over the place, like from the early
Yeah.
90s
I watched a
up
couple.
until they broke up in 2012.
They put on a badass show. They
It
are
looks so
performance
fun.
artists.
Yeah, it looks so fun.
In an alternate dimension, I would have been in this band. Like I relate to these people heavily. And I had no idea that they had been releasing shit since 1986, the same year as fucking They Might Be Giants' first album is also Chumbawamba's first album, which is strange.
They got together in 1982, actually. But in my head, when I hear somebody's an anarchist or whatever, it's like you just picture somebody's like posturing and a lot of like they dress a certain way. And it's more about that aspect of it. For these guys, they were literally living in a squat house all together and sharing everything. And like,
see, that's what I picture when I picture anarchy. But I get what you're saying. You're thinking of posery types.
it wasn't just like mall anarchists. No, they were like
Legitimate.
really living in a completely different way than most people live. Even when they got jobs, they would share money with each other and, food.
Which I very much relate to. I have lived in those types of scenarios myself. Kind of similar to Patti Smith, honestly.
Yeah, but dirtier.
Or Patti Smith just glamorized her shit better. She was more poetic about it.
I think that she had more of a bankroll behind her. Like the artist guy that was their benefactor, I think he was like paying for things. And so like staying in the Chelsea hotel, not exactly on the same level as squatting in an abandoned building in Northern England.
Yeah, but they really jazzed it up. You saw the documentary, right?
Yeah.
I thought it looked great in there. It looked really clean and nice.
I don't know that I don't know that it's on par with.
I've had similar squat scenarios. It may not be on par, but it's just a similar vibe is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just interesting how we keep choosing bands that
like
kind of relate to each other, even though they're completely different.
Yeah, and like literally came from complete anonymity.
Other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that too.
I was trying to, one of the things I do first is make like a members list of all the people that are in the band and what they play and like kind of what their role is and stuff.
Mhm.
Dude, I have been confused about who's in this band and what they do in this band until literally today. I finally like cracked the code of who everybody is and not what they do. I still don't really understand that because they all do like 20
I think they trade
different
off.
things.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And like in between songs, they're switching instruments. And I think there's some consistency, but that was really confusing on which person is doing what and like what each person's role or job is in the band. And then half of them leave way into it.
Exactly. There's like it's in and out, which totally makes sense with the whole anarchy lifestyle and everything. There's people that kind of pop in and out, so that makes perfect sense to me. And it doesn't seem like any of it was like then everybody got mad and kicked this guy out.
Right.
Like it doesn't seem like there was any of that. It seemed like it was just drifting in and out kind of thing, and nobody being upset about it. I mean, they didn't talk specifically about that, but that was the vibe that I was getting. Did you get a load of this guy's name? Danbert No Bacon?
Yeah. His
It's not his birth name.
no.
He chose that name.
Did you find his birth name?
Yeah. It's Nigel Hunter.
That's what, yeah. I thought it was like Nigel or something like kind of posh or like.
Yeah, Nigel Hunter and Daniel No Bacon.
Danbert No Bacon, which when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's either because like punk rockers make dumb names for themselves and go by dumb names. Like everybody knows like a Steve-O and a Schmitty and everybody
a
has
Pogo and a yeah, exactly.
So for him, I was reading that and I was like, okay, is it maybe pronounced like Nabacon or something? Like it reads as No Bacon. But yeah, when I heard interviews,
No,
it's
like No Bacon because these guys are vegetarian. And his last name was Hunter before. So No Bacon is kind of the opposite of Hunter.
So he was the one because his name pops up first on a lot of lists and stuff. I thought that he was like the lead singer.
Yeah.
For the whole like
Boff.
No, Boff is the guitar player. The lead singer is Dunstan Bruce. He's the like.
I would argue that the lead singer is the woman.
The male lead singer is what like I'm thinking specifically just basing all of this on only knowing tub thumping. The one I thought that he was the one
guy that stands in front that you see the most.
But then going through the list of names, I thought Alice Nutter was the woman lead singer when I was going through it. It's not. It's Lou Watts. Like she's actually the main vocalist through most of it. The main female vocalist. So it's like they have their main people, like their drummer, their guitar, and their bass player. And then there's like 4 or 5 or 6 other people doing other random stuff, playing horns or keys or like.
Well, and literally everyone in the band sings.
Yeah.
So like it's also confusing because of that.
I didn't see him playing other instruments as much. He was the one that was really front and center a lot. The Danbert No Bacon guy, he did a lot of percussion stuff. He also just like, they had like hype guys, they'd run around and do like.
Which one was the bald
vocals.
guy?
That's Danbert.
Okay. I liked his vibe a lot.
Yeah.
Of all the dudes, I thought he had a really cool stage presence.
But I don't know. It was just because their music is so wide. There's such a wide style, like between all of their different songs. I think to accommodate that, they have a bunch of different people doing a bunch of different things. And it was really, until I started watching videos, it was really hard to get an idea for who was doing what and who was responsible for what.
Yeah, and I feel like we haven't, or at least I haven't done a very good job of pointing out band members on any of these. Because I'm kind of just thinking of it as a unit for the most part.
Well, it's easier when it is the same like 4 people or 3 or 5 or whatever people. But the list of people that were on their albums and on different songs and stuff, it like the core is like 7 people. And then there's probably another 5 that pop in and out over the course of their careers. And then there's all the other people that just like played on some tracks and on some albums. So it just... I was really trying to get it as like a solid core. And it really, I think, is a 7 to 8 piece. And then, extra from there. They started in their little squat playing like punk shows and stuff. They have some releases that were on cassette and they were on some compilations. And like, so they had some stuff before that 1986 album. I didn't find any of it except for the Revolution EP, which came out in 84, a couple years before. It's short. It's only like 10 minutes long. And it's very much in the vein. If anything, it's like angrier and worse quality than their first album, but it's very much in that like.
Well, they were a lot less fun at the beginning.
Yeah.
They were way more focused on the message and being really serious at the beginning, and then kind of started to have a little more fun with it later. It's funny too because they kept saying that none of them wanted to be in a band. Like they didn't mean to be in a band. Like it was sort of an accident somehow. Oh, it was a joke because it said on the documentary that like they were at some event and they called out like, who's in a band? And they just raised their hands like as a joke. And then they sent around a piece of paper for everyone to write like the name of their band and all the members. And so they made up a band name really quick and wrote down all the members and then got called like a week later, like, oh, we got you a show. And so they were like, oh, fuck, I guess we're a band now. Like that's how they became a band. Like just made a dumb joke and bam, now we're a band.
That's the beauty of punk rock is you don't need to know how to play. You just need to decide we're in a band and then you show up and.
Well, that's literally a quote from the documentary. Like one of the guys said, before punk, you had to practice, you had to want to be in a band and all that. It's his specific quote. And then one of the girls said, I didn't want to be in a band. They just made me do it.
It seems to have clicked at some point. Like where they were committed to doing, to being an actual band.
Well, they were committed to their lifestyle and they just kind of transformed that into being a band or just added the element of being a band into their already established lifestyle.
So they started their first two full lengths are like super punk rock, right?
Yeah.
The first one's titled Pictures of Starving Children Sell Records, Starvation Charity and Rock and Roll Lies and Tradition. And it's like, you know what you're in for from this point forward.
And I'm in love.
I think starting it that like aggressively anti music industry and anti-musician and all that stuff is a really bold statement, but it makes it really hard to become part of the music industry, which they did later. Like you can kind of track where the backlash came from, right? Because they're really initially built on this idea of the music industry as evil. All the people that are producing or participating in it are doing it not out of a sense of charity and like out of a sense of trying to get rich and making themselves look good versus actually trying to be good or do good. And so it's interesting where they end up later, and like I think they have justified to me the decisions they made, but you can see why people would be upset.
I completely, totally agree. It was really funny in the documentary, them reading their reviews and shit, and like all the people that they interviewed that were talking shit about them being sellouts.
Yeah.
Which no matter what you do, people are going to call you a sellout. If you make any money at any point ever, people are going to call you a sellout, regardless of whether you were fucking squatting for the majority of your life and then you finally got some money one time and people are going to call you a fucking sellout. If you won the lottery, anything. People are too quick to jump to shit talking, I think, without doing any like investigation or actual deep thought on the matter, because from what you said, I don't think that they're sellouts. It may look to the untrained eye like they are capitalist pawns once their music videos are way more polished and like all this shit, but they're still saying the same shit that they've always said, and now they just have a platform and they're getting paid for it, which is even better because it's like they're tricking the system into giving them money and they're still saying fuck you, you're stupid. It's perfect. I think it makes perfect sense and it's great. I love them. I don't think they sold out.
They're bringing it down from the inside.
Exactly. And like legitimately too. They're not just fake about it. All the shit that they still say out loud is in the same vein as they have always been. And that's how I feel. Like if I ever become rich, I'm going to be the same person and just happen to have money. It's really interesting to me and exciting for them. I'm really happy for them that they made some money off of this.
They don't seem to be happy for them necessarily, though. Like, it didn't seem like they liked being famous or doing the, like, being part of the system. And not just because they did a bunch of stuff to piss off the people that were in charge. It just didn't seem like they enjoyed being famous or wanted to do that stuff. Like, playing on Letterman and Leno and going on Politically Incorrect and all that stuff. That wasn't what they wanted to do. They wanted to play music and they wanted to protest and they wanted to do all the political activism. I think you're right. I think getting it in front of people was the main goal. But to me, it seemed like maybe they decided the trade off wasn't necessarily worth it. And then it was better to be like
Well, yeah,
have their
fame
little blip
sucks.
and then go back to being independent and doing what they wanted to do.
Of course. But I'm just saying that I don't think that they sold out as far as their message stayed consistent and has stayed consistent across the board, you know?
It is funny to me going back and listening to this because this album calls out all the first album calls out all the Live Aid people and is really throwing mud at like everybody, Freddie Mercury and Paul McCartney and every
Yeah, I
major
was like,
artist now.
damn.
And like from this angle now, it's like Chumbawamba's known because they had a big hit and a big album and all that stuff. And so it's like they're on similar levels popularity. Not, I mean, clearly they're not as popular as Queen was or whatever, but like they're a known entity talking shit on other known entities. But when this album comes out, they're not. Like they're just,
Right.
crusty anarchists in England that are
Just
just
because
saying this.
people found out who they were, I don't
Right.
know. That's like not their fault.
Well, I'm just saying you listen to it with a different perspective now than you would have then. Then they're screaming up
Exactly.
at people that are like in a different stratosphere from them. And now it would be a bigger deal if this came out after they were popular than it coming out
Right.
before anybody knew who
'Cause
they
then
were.
they're
Like you
closer
can
on
get
the
away
same
with
level.
it. Yes,
Yeah.
and you can get away with it because there's no repercussions because you're already at the bottom. You're already unknown, like somebody can't say
Right.
you'll never play in this town again when you haven't played in that town yet. But even then, I mean, they did tone it down to make it more palatable. I think the first couple of albums you and I like a lot and really appealed to us. I don't know that they
Mhm.
are the most like the easiest to recommend albums. Like they are abrasive in a sense. They're not unlistenable punk rock. I think they've always had a sense of melody and being clever with lyrics and sonically interesting. But I think these first couple are the ones that are like a little more intense.
Yeah, it's more experimental and shit for sure. Because they were not a band. They didn't know how to play anything. They were just winging it. And that makes total sense to me. It kind of had like punk, experimental, got a little bit of reggae happening, a little bit of ska vibes, like saves the day energy going on there.
I did see the second one. Like the first two, I kind of group in together. They're very similar albums. The second one I saw got #2 on the UK indie charts. So
Nice.
it wasn't that nobody was listening to them. I mean, nobody in America, I'm sure, was listening to them at this point. But it seemed like they did find something of an audience even this far back, like even being this punk rock.
Well, when you play enough shows, I mean, I was in bands that had listeners, you know what I mean? Like, not that I was topping charts or anything, but we've been in bands so I can see how it's doable to be such a weird random band.
Okay, speaking of weird and random, you think like I got it. They're anarchist punks. They're screaming. They're mad at capitalism. They're mad at every other musician. They're like pissed off at politicians. They have a really politically minded, angry, loud punk rock music. The third album they come out with is English Rebel songs. Is that the order that you listen to these in?
Yeah.
All right. So that one, imagine being a huge fan of this band and then just, pre-internet, pre-YouTube, pre-anything, going and
Wait,
picking up
are you
their
talking
new.
about no. You're talking about English Rebel songs 1381 to 1984?
Yeah.
Okay. That one is way later on my list.
Okay.
My list has Anarchy as the third album.
Then you're all messed up, man. I gotta straighten you out on the order of these actually. So here's what happened.
Fucking Spotify
That's
has the Rebel songs as 2003.
so so you heard a different version than the one I did. They released that
Damn.
same album in 1988 and it's exactly the same.
Damn.
It's all a cappella. It's all like traditional British working class like anthems.
So it's British. I thought this whole time that it was Irish. They sound very Irish vibes to me.
I
The
always thought they
chanting.
were Irish growing up, but they're not. They're British. They grew up they're from northern England.
Anarchy in the UK.
All the mining strikes and stuff. I ended up again going down some rabbit holes and like learning about all these weird mining towns in northern England that got shut down in the mid 80s when Margaret Thatcher was prime minister and cracking down on the working man, which they were at like all those protests. And there was a big mining strike in the 80s that there's like footage of them playing like in the middle of the day at this festival and all these punk rockers dancing around and also like guys who work in the mines coming out. I guess a really weird mix of people.
Yeah, I fucking love that shit.
But yeah, this acapella one is like it's not done for a band that's like jokey and tongue-in-cheek and stuff. This one is done very straightforward. They have all the harmonies. It's almost completely acapella. A lot of the songs were written written hundreds of years ago and are like traditional songs.
Yeah, for the unskilled musicians they claim to be, they can
Right.
harmonize like pros.
Yes.
Their harmonies are beautiful.
The one that you listen to is the same songs. I think they maybe changed one or two or added one or two songs, but they re-recorded it in 2003 with a little bit more instrumentation and, them being 15 years older and having
It
more
was still
experience and
mostly
stuff.
chanting.
Yeah, but it's still all
Chanting,
acapella,
sing-songing shit. Yeah.
all harmonies, like all very, very, very traditional sounding songs. And the content of all the songs is very in keeping with their message and who they are as a band and stuff. But sonically, it's such a weird direction and such a strange, like, I didn't expect to be sitting here listening to an hour of acapella English traditional chants. And yet
To me, it
I
makes
have.
perfect sense, though. It aligns with their whole thing.
With the message for sure. Sonically, it's really the opposite end of the complete sonic spectrum.
I think sonically, they're all fucking over the place, though. So to me, it fits right in.
This is the first evidence of that. Like the first couple are
Yeah,
they're
well,
pretty tight.
that is a factor where I listen to a bunch of their albums before I listen to this one because of the order that Spotify has them.
Right.
So yeah, so I got a bunch of variety before I got to this one, so it just made total sense to me at that time. But yeah, it probably would have been way more jarring if I had listened to it the third album.
And I just imagine going to the record store and being like, oh yeah, I love this band. I'm going to go home and listen to this, and expecting what you hear on the first couple of albums and like who they've been up until that point and getting these songs. Like I can see people feeling a little burned by that, buying stuff sight unseen.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that. So the one I listened to as the third album, I still have a note that says like Irish classic shit, which clearly it's not Irish, but
So
just
that's Anarchy.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was still some sort of classic sing-songy shit on there as well.
Yeah, well, and that was, they did incorporate a lot of that acapella and like harmonizing and stuff. It's on almost all the rest of their songs. And then when you get to the end of their career, it's like, oh, that's just what they became. Which was because I do a little bit of just like overview stuff before I start listening, and it always said they turned into like an acoustic or a traditional style band, and I was like, oh, they did that really early. They turned into a traditional folk band super early, like still in the 80s.
Album 3.
No, it was just one random one-off album. That was that. And I think they did a lot of those songs live too during that time. The next two albums, so that's like, that to me, the 80s is kind of like one little chunk of them. You get the punk rock stuff, you get a lot of like pro-union, pro-worker rights stuff, and it kind of culminates in that English Rebel songs. The next two are Shhhlap and Shh. So that's when I asked you the other day if you were listening to them, and you said you were listening to that later.
Okay,
that one got repackaged as like a double disc.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, and that's what Spotify has. It doesn't have the two separates. It only has Shhhlap.
Yes, that's what I listened to too, was Shhhlap, but I skipped since I knew they were released earlier, and I listened to those two first. So those two albums both like, again, have some of that acapella stuff. This is where it all starts to mix to me. Those two albums were the first ones that had like, you started getting some house music and like some dance stuff in there, and you started
I wish I would have listened to them in the right order.
It really is a transition between their 80s punk rock stuff and Anarchy, even up into, I'd probably say up into Tubthumper. Those two are where you start to get all that stuff. All the like DJ scratches and samples and like that house
Beastie
music
Boys
stuff.
shit.
Yes, and all the rapping. There's like 2 or 3 songs that have just straight up.
There's straight up
very
Beastie
British,
Boys shit.
very British rap verses.
Same with the WYSIWYG album. What does that stand for?
What you see is what you get.
Got it. Okay, what you see is what you get. Also had some like Beastie Boys vibes with all the sampling and shit.
So yeah, when you told me you were listening to them in a different order, I was like, that's going to be another.
It's a whole different thing.
Because out of context and like in 2003, I'm sure that it sounds like regressing a little bit, like kind of going back to the 90s sound.
Exactly.
Because there were a couple of albums in there, but that was really the one that was like, that was the beginning of that rather than going back to it.
Because also my note, once I got to that album, I was like, okay, I'm getting sick of this.
Yeah.
And if I had listened to it before, I don't know, maybe I would have been sick of it then too, and then just got back into their next albums or something.
Well,
but
those two to me really, I was trying to figure out how to reconcile this whole time, like how to reconcile their big album with their anarchist punk rock beginnings. Because it's a really big gap from the first two albums to where they're at in the 90s. And if you only look at that, like they went from this straight to this other thing, it does seem like they sold out because that's their major label debut. And like it sounds so different from what they sounded like before. And it just sounds like they went from sounding like Crass to sounding like the Spice Girls. But having all these albums in between, especially these two that were still independently written and made and produced and released on small independent labels, you can really see the transition starting to happen in these early albums that I think peaked in those major label albums. But the influence and the like ideas were already there.
What was the first major label album?
Tubthumper.
So the 1994 Anarchy, I thought was so good. Like Homophobia is the Worst Disease. So good. Heaven and Hell, experimental wacky shit, Devo vibes, Weird Al, B-52s type shit. You know I love that shit. But also very British.
Yeah.
This album was when I noticed that they're really nailing the last song on every album. Kind of like how Patty had a banger at the beginning of every album. I feel like Chumbawamba's really hitting it at the end, which I enjoyed. I love all the chicks singing. The one main chick sounds so much like Annie Lennox.
Kind of looks like her too, now that you've said that.
Are you talking about the dark-haired one?
No.
Oh, okay. Because the dark-haired one, I really like her voice too, even though she said she's not a singer. But yeah, so the Anarchy album I thought was really good.
Their big album is a lesser version of Anarchy to me. This was the peak of this 90s sound for them. And going back and looking at their live shows, they played Glastonbury in 94 and 95. They had played big shows. They had an audience, like they had a draw. They didn't come out of nowhere. I think for us in the US, they completely came out of nowhere.
Especially for people who aren't paying attention to the underground punk scene.
They did tour with Fugazi. They did play a string of shows in the early 90s with Fugazi, which makes a lot of sense in retrospect.
Tons of sense.
Now, doesn't make sense.
They seem like a great match.
Yeah, if you just like randomly say, yeah, Chumbawamba opened for Fugazi, you're like, oh, I bet that was a weird show.
Right. If you only know Tub Thumpin' or whatever. But I'm just gonna lie, Tub Thumpin' has a whole new depth now that I know their other shit and how deep they really are.
Everything they did has a whole new, like, I won't be able to go back and listen to them in the same way. Even that song, like, I'm just looking at it through a new lens.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry. It's hard to differentiate between when I'm talking about the song or the album, but Thumping is the song.
Okay.
I thought it was so funny how in the documentary they were talking about they lied to the press all the time, and the press would just print what they said as fact, and they just were doing it as to be funny, basically.
Yeah, that's why there's so many different versions of where their name came from, because they would just say some random stuff every time somebody asked them the same question. They would make up a different answer. And
that shit's hilarious.
Makes researching a band 25 years later a little more difficult. But,
which is even funnier.
Funny. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
What gets remembered, what gets printed, what becomes the truth, even if it's not the truth. You know, I think Anarchy was a really good for that 90s sound, but I think Swingin' with Raymond, their last independent, the one right before Tubthumper, I think that may be a better album. That's the one that's half folk songs and half rock songs.
Yeah, and it was really chick focused, which I like.
Yeah. She sings every song on the first half of the album, Lou Watts. It really felt like her showcase of that half of the album, which again, to me, knowing that they turned into a folk band, I was like, oh, is this the album where they turn into a folk band? And it's like, no, halfway through it switches. And then it's like back to the dance pop weird jumble of every different type of genre and style.
I can't wait to hear Chumbawamba's 2024 album.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's going to happen. They're gonna get back together. They're gonna release a new album. And the album may not come out this year, but they're ready. They're primed for a resurgence.
Well, and if they give a shit about American politics at all, this is perfect timing with this like election shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
think we're
primed for for Chumba to swoop in and really tell it like it is.
Swoop in, chum. It's the age of Aquarius. Mars has moved from Saturn has moved from Pluto.
Yeah, not Mars. That wouldn't make any sense.
Saturn has moved from Capricorn to Aquarius. Shit's about to go down. Jupiter. I don't remember which planet.
I want to buy Swingin' with Raymond because the record version of it, the first half is Love It and the second half is Hate It. I like having the physical representation of that.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the main guys that sings, I don't know which guy it is, but he sounds exactly like the guy from The Decemberists. Exactly. We've got Annie Lennox and the guy from The Decemberists.
Was that on these albums or in the later albums?
He was popping in a little bit at the beginning, but on all the later albums, he's like the main guy
Because the
singing.
later when they turn into a folk band, there's different singers.
They
Danbert
sound like the
and
Decemberists.
Dunstan both leave the band. Like the two main dude singers leave the band, and so
Okay.
the
So
male
it's a new guy,
vocalist,
maybe?
I think it's Boff, maybe. So he was there the whole time. I think it's the guitar player, and it may be him that's the
It
December.
has to be Boff. Yeah.
But I did notice that too, that like there's a very strong Decemberist vibe later on.
Yes.
Without feeling like they're chasing genres, it feels like they are a really good snapshot of like what is happening in music at that specific time. On a smaller scale, you get the British punk rock in the 80s. You start to get that like house dance stuff in the 90s. You get the late 90s really polished dance pop stuff with all the samples and like it fits in with Smash
You
Mouth
even
and
get some
311
Enya
and
vibes in there.
then the later in the like 2000s, it turns into that like indie folk stuff where the Decemberists and those type of bands were blowing up.
Almost Ben Gibbard energy.
Oh yeah, for sure. But also more that element of the traditional British folk singing as well. All right, I feel like we should devote a pretty hefty chunk of time to Tubthumper.
Okay.
Because I mean, this is the one, right?
I mean, I literally barely took a note on this album. My note was just that this band has the album and the song Tub Thumping has a whole new depth after listening to all their other music. That's all the only note I took.
How so? How has it changed for you?
Because before I just thought of it as a stupid one-hit wonder song about like getting drunk that caters to the masses is what I thought of that song before.
Yeah. I think that's probably why it got so popular because I think most people would agree, especially at the time.
And the lyrics, they're not that many lyrics. It's very repetitive. And one of the people that were criticizing them that they interviewed in the documentary said that they were like, I wanted to write down all the criticisms because they were all so fucking funny. Like the fact that they put it all in the documentary too, because the guy from the band made the documentary.
Yeah.
So it's like hilarious to me that they put all the criticism in there. The
The
criticism was
name
so
of the
funny.
documentary is Well Done, Now Sawed Off, which is straight
Yeah.
out of one of the letters that somebody wrote to them that was like, you guys should quit. You suck. Your music sucks now. You've sold out. Quit. So I think
Right.
that's like taking that criticism and making it the title of your documentary. Like,
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's
fucking hilarious.
so funny.
Yeah, they are so hilarious. Like this band is great. And I feel like the Alice chick is sort of the ringleader in a way. And she was just so funny to me. Her thoughts on shoplifting.
Did you hear the story of where that song came from?
I don't remember.
It was Boff, I think it was the guitar player. He and his wife saw there was like this dude that lived in their neighborhood, and he used to on the weekends go to the pub and just get hammered. And he was like an old guy, and they saw him like stumbling back to his house one night, and he couldn't get into his door and was like falling over at the door and couldn't get it unlocked. And his wife was yelling at him through the window, and he kept like dropping his keys and falling over, and then he would like eventually made it back got the door unlocked and made it back in. And so that became like this analogy for the British working class as like, they'll get knocked down. You'll do all this union busting stuff. You'll do all this stuff to take things away, but the working man will eventually get back up again. And like,
You're never going to keep me down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I guess they said it better than I could, that he'll get knocked down, but he'll get up again. So it is about drinking. It is based on this drunk guy, but it also has like this larger working class message.
And that's all of their songs. If you think it's just like a jokey, funny song, you're fucking wrong. No matter what it is, I think.
That's the downside of them having 150 songs to go through, is I didn't really have enough. Every single song has like basically a history lesson in it somewhere, and you can't really go back and dig up what each one of them is about because there are so many of them. So I know there's a ton of British history in these songs that I just don't
I
know.
felt like even though they're a far less serious band, I felt that way with They Might Be Giants as well, because they use they just make so many references that you're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
What's cloisonne?
But theirs are a lot of like pop culture references, and these are a lot of
all
like
kinds of random shit.
Working class struggles. And
yeah, their shit had less of a purpose.
Yeah.
At times, I feel. But also they were still really intelligent, and there were like, messages going on in a lot of their songs that you wouldn't get if you didn't know the references.
Yes, I would argue more like literary references than like class struggle references.
Right.
But yeah,
They're intelligent, but less of a purpose.
There are a lot of ties between this and They Might Be Giants. Like sonically, how weird it all is and how it's like kind of throw everything out there and see what sticks.
I will say I like this band way fucking better. They're like a million times more listenable than They Might Be Giants. As a matter of fact, one of the critics on the documentary called them relentless, and that was the word that I kept using for They Might Be Giants. A lot of the way that the critics were describing this band was the way I felt about They Might Be Giants.
That makes sense.
I don't feel that way about this band. Even though there are similarities, I don't think the bad things about the other band are necessarily a part of this.
They did get a lot of shit for like selling out on this album, right? Because this was the first one that was on EMI and they have lyrics in their songs.
There's a difference between selling out and receiving money.
Yeah, for sure. What really set it for me, and I just found this out like right before we started recording. I was trying to find information about the recording process behind this album because it is better produced. Like it does sound more polished and like clean than a lot of their other stuff. And I didn't know if that was a byproduct of the recording process or who produced it or when all that stuff came out, but I just found out today while I was looking at it that this album was already recorded. They had already recorded this album. They offered it to the label that released their last two, Anarchy and Swinging with Raymond. They gave them this album, and that record label basically said, we're not going to put this out. It's too far out of your like genre that you're in. Like they rejected the album that Chumbawamba recorded. And so it seems to me like that album was already made. Then they got signed to EMI, and then EMI put the album out. So it wasn't even the change in like sound and the change in recording wasn't even a byproduct of getting signed to EMI. I think getting on MTV and having a bunch of airplay and all that stuff, the better music videos and all the stuff that came after
It's the music videos, man. It's the visuals of the music videos. And see, that's why people who call people sellouts, like fucking the punks that, or the supposed punks that call people sellouts all the time, need to do a little bit more research and think a little bit more deeply about what they're saying before they just throw that out there about, people just say that about anybody, but it's just simply not true.
Well, and in the interviews, they were like, we've been on independent record labels for at this point, because it came out in 97. They've been a band since 1982. They've been doing it for 15 years. And they were like, all the indie labels are capitalist also. They are also trying to make money off of us. They're just not as good at it. So if we're going to work in a capitalist system, it makes more sense for us to work for someone who is more efficient at capitalism, because then we can get in front of more people. Then we can do what we want to do better than limiting ourselves and like being able to have the street cred, but like not the audience that you would normally get otherwise. And to me, what, like I said, what really stuck it wasn't like, here's a bunch of money if you record an album that sounds specifically like we want this album to sound. It was the other way. It was like, they already had this album. Here's a bunch of money for this album that you already made and we're already trying to release anyway.
Exactly. That's badass. And anybody who would say that, like a lot of the critics on there were calling them hypocrites over and over, which is simply not fucking true. Also, the people who are so quick to call people sellouts, ask yourself if you were in the same position, if you would take that money or not. And I guarantee you almost everybody would. So go fuck yourself. Like, and they took the money and did a good thing with it. Like they're still doing their same thing, putting out their same message. That's exactly what you should want to happen to these types of people in this shitty society. Like, because the other option is for them to be in poverty and obscurity and nobody hear them.
Right.
Like, what?
How is that better?
Nobody, why would we? Yeah, how is that better? Yeah. It's not.
Because it's not like there's not going to be pop music and there's not going to be videos on
exactly.
MTV.
That's what I'm saying. There are going to be legitimate sellouts taking their place. Like, yeah. And it's funny because on the documentary, Alice was like, yeah, it's funny how people like called us sellouts and thought that we would give a shit about that. Like, we don't care what you call us, kind of a thing. They're just badasses.
Speaking of the stuff they did once they got on that label, did you read about any of the stuff that they used their fame to do, or like that they did while they were hugely popular like that? Well, there's a few that kept cropping up, one of which was dumping the ice bucket on the deputy prime minister at the Brit Awards in like 98, so like the year after this album came out. Did you see or read anything about that?
Yeah.
They performed at the show and then changed the lyrics to talk about how the new Labor Party was selling out the dock workers and was going to sell out everybody else, and like, don't let them. It's hard because I don't really know much about British politics, but like, don't trust these guys. They're bad guys. And then at the end of the show, dumped the ice bucket on him.
Well, that is one cool thing that I feel like that isn't just another piece of evidence that they're not sellouts, is they were constantly changing their lyrics for like shows that were being recorded, or like really big shows like on TV. Like I think they did it on Letterman or something. They were constantly using their platform to fucking get a message across. And that's literally the opposite of selling out. And the opposite of being a hypocrite.
I agree. The Letterman was cool because they changed one of the lyrics to free a guy who had been wrongfully accused for murdering a police officer, and they recorded it, and the producers came over to him and they were like, you can't do that, like do it, go record it again with the right lyrics. And they just straight up said no and didn't do it. And they were like, you can either air it or not air it, but we're not going to go record it again. That would be selling out, right? Like going and not doing it because somebody told you to do it, and
but
you're like,
they didn't.
Yeah, and they just said,
and
no, we're not going to do it.
Rock,
and
baby.
then it still got on the air.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But there was that. There was the prime minister thing. They did a commercial for GM, or not, they didn't do a commercial, but they licensed their music to a commercial for GM. And then when they got paid for it, they donated all of that money to like an anti-GM nonprofit, like a watchdog group, basically, which was, that is just funny to me. That to me is hilarious. Like he
it's
just
perfection.
made that
it's
company.
Perfection, because they're clowning on the system.
Yeah.
The people who call them posers aren't getting the joke.
Or giving them
the people
credit
who call
for
them
what they're
sellouts
doing.
are not getting it. It's anarchist as fuck.
An interview they watched that I watched later were like, people call us a one-hit wonder, like it's an insult and like we should feel bad about it and all this stuff. But we expect it to be a no-hit wonder. So the fact that we had one is like, that's cool. That's one more than we expected. And they still get to get royalties off of it, which allows them to continue to make the art they want to make now. Like it seems like they have both justified it and kind of come to terms with what this album was and what that song was and what it did for them and everything, in a way that I actually think is pretty healthy. It's not like a thing where they won't talk about it or won't play it or won't look at people who say they like that song.
Well, another thing they said in an interview, one of them, I don't remember, was like, we're anarchists. We never said that there were rules. Us selling out or whatever, according to you, selling out is, we didn't promise that we wouldn't,
right.
Like,
basically,
yeah. Which is very anarchist. Like their whole thing, they are so legit. Yeah. Like they're probably the most legit anarchists I've ever fucking witnessed.
Especially with because they could have gone the other direction. They could have gone, write another Tubthumper and like another very palatable, very pop, very radio friendly album. I think you could argue that they didn't. I think that next one,
yeah,
What
they
You See Is
definitely
What
didn't.
You Get, it doesn't have that song on there. I do think they're trying to write pop stuff, but I still think that it's a reflection of the songs that they wanted to write and the type of music that they wanted to make. That album for me, that was the point where I was kind of like, I was getting sick of it at that point. After Tubthumper into What You See Is What You Get, and even Ready Mades, those next two. So the What You See Is What You Get, that one is like 25 songs long, 22 songs long. Half of them are just like,
too many.
It sounds like a radio dial turning, and it has all these little sketches and like samples before and after every single song. And I get the idea that it's supposed to be like, this is everything, like these are all of the influence, and but it was just too much. It was too overwhelming. It was like watching like Saturday morning cartoons like 3 inches from the screen, where you couldn't really see what the picture was. It was just
with
like
those Clockwork Orange brainwashing eyeball holders.
Yes, that's how my ears felt after listening to that.
Okay, so we had similar experiences, but different because we listened to them in a different order.
Right.
Because I listened to that one so much before you did, I wasn't bothered by it. When I got to Stop was when I was like, or Shhhlap, my bad.
Yeah.
Shhhlap, I was thinking stop as it was playing. Because I listened to that one so much later. Yeah, that was when I was getting sick of them. But this, What You See Is What You Get, was like the 7th album for me.
Yeah.
So I wasn't that annoyed by that one.
I do, like, after some time, want to revisit it a little bit and listen to it with kind of fresh ears.
I actually listened to that one a few times because I thought it was really interesting.
It was just a little overwhelming.
Yeah. I thought the Ready Mades was also really interesting.
See, that was the point where I was
dug
like,
that one.
I think I hate this. Like, I think I had gotten completely off the train at that point.
That's
That
hilarious.
one, that was the one you said had Enya vibes to it.
Yeah.
It had a lot more like synthy and droney stuff, and I listened to it
Uh-huh.
right after the other one, and it was a struggle making it through this one. This one was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. I don't know if that means this album is terrible or if you shouldn't listen to 14 Chumbawamba albums in a row.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't listen to any band that many albums in a row. As we've found, you can really get sick of most bands. I kind of dug it. So
So Ready Mades was them going back to being independent. To me, it just musically and like how interesting it was and what they were doing, it was my least favorite album. I think this was kind of the low point for me where I was really like, oh man, I got like 5 more albums to go through. If they're like going in this direction, I'm not feeling it.
But then turns out they weren't.
Yeah, who knew?
Because so for me, I listened to Rebel songs and then stop right after that one. And then got to, is it
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like how it's written on the album cover as Chumbawamba.
Yeah.
Like it's all one word.
So this was the last one with like the main lineup. I think after this one is when Danbert and Alice and Dunstan and the original drummer all left. So this is the last true Chumbawamba album, kind of in a way, because half of the band left.
I also listened to Ready Mades and then some. Did you listen to that?
It only had one extra song. I listened to the extra song. I looked it up. I was like, why is it and then some? Like, what is the and then?
The then some.
It came with the DVD. It came with the DVD that had that documentary on it, which would be cool to own, at the time.
Yeah.
That would have been a cool package.
You could find that.
I'm telling you, I'm going to go. I know I'll be able to find Tubthumper really easily. I'm curious because I had never even seen any of these other album covers or heard any of the other album titles. You know what I mean? It's not like I'd seen them floating around or anything.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see if any of them, now that I'm looking for them, will pop up.
The Show Business Live album was good too, by the way. I listened to that one right at the beginning.
Was good, not great. It was less irritating than the previous ones. I was really annoyed.
That was pretty much my notes. I was like, kind of folksy, not bad or too offensive to my ears.
Yeah, but again, it also wasn't. It
not
was
bad,
a little
but
more
not a fave kind of a thing.
Yes, yeah, it was a little more bland. I didn't feel like it was making as big or as bold of a statement. I mean, they're 20 years older, so of course they're not as. You always lose a little bit of that edge.
After all that activity on stage, you get fucking exhausted. You see them slamming those cymbals together.
Yes, yeah, for on and on and on and on. It would have been so fun to see them in the 90s because seeing them live now, it would not be the same experience. Just
I would have liked to see them in the 80s, Tub Thumping.
I think 90s like 93, 94, where they're still doing all the weird, like big band soundy stuff and all the samples and all of that, but before Tub Thumping. This is the part where like this is a weird band. They've done a bunch of weird stuff. They take yet another weird turn, release a Singsong and
turn into the Decemberists,
which is a 4-piece. There's only 4 members of the band at this point, and yeah, it's just a straight up folk like
super chill, folksy.
Yeah, great.
I dug it.
I was so excited for you to get to the end. I was a little bit ahead of you. I was so excited for you to get to the last 3 albums because I think they're great.
I do too.
And they're a totally different vibe. It sounds like they're adults now. They're still singing about similar stuff. The Sonic ballot is much different, but I guess they performed at like folk festivals and like they went full folk.
But again, the anarchist punk message and the folk activist message is the same. So it makes sense to me that they would mature into that.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a through line, even though the sound changes. Like there's a through line of their message staying the same.
They're still the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Which is cool. You can grow as musicians, but at your core, still care about the same stuff, and that's cool.
Well, and it felt like
consistency.
They dealt with all the sellout like drama and all that stuff in a way that was like, you guys think whatever you want, we're gonna keep doing what we want to do, you're either with it or you're not, in a way that by the time they get here and they do a folk album, it's like, A, they don't have the mainstream audience that they had before, but B, they've already proven that they're gonna do whatever they want to do, and it's up to you to either be on board or not at this point. Like it didn't feel like a betrayal, I think, to change their sound this much at this point because they'd already done it so many times and already done so much other weird stuff. I do wonder who the audience is at this point.
Us.
Well, now it is, but like at the time, what were the record sales like? Who was buying this stuff? How well did it sell?
Yeah. I was thinking that during the Boy Bands album, which I think is a great title.
Have you read the entire title?
The boy bands have won.
Have you read the whole thing?
The boy bands have won, and all the copyists and the tribute bands and the TV talent show producers have won. If we allow our culture to be shaped by mimicry, whether from lack of ideas or from exaggerated respect, you should never try to freeze culture. What you can do is recycle that culture. Take your older brother's hand-me-down jacket and restyle it, refashion it to be the point where it becomes your own. But don't just regurgitate creative history or hold art and music and literature as fixed, untouchable, and kept under glass. The people who try to guard any particular form of music are like the copyists and the manufactured bands, doing it the worst disservice, because the only thing that you can do to music that will damage it is not change it, not make it your own, because then it dies, then it's over, then it's done, and the boy bands have won.
Yeah, which like that
That
sums
is
up their whole
so
argument,
good.
right? Yeah. If you're not on board with that,
I'm
this is not
fucking
the band.
obsessed with this
This isn't the
band.
band for you. If you don't, if that doesn't stir a little something inside of you, you're not going to
It
get much
literally
out of it.
brings a tear to my eye. Literally, there is a tear about to drop out of my eye right now. That was beautiful. Poetry.
I also think it's somewhat funny for that statement to come from a band who has released 2 albums of songs that are hundreds of years old, sung exactly how they've been sung for hundreds of years. I think there is a little element of irony there. As I was reading it,
Yeah.
I was like, wait, you guys took a whole bunch of songs and then didn't change them and release them as they always have been.
Some things unchanged are still relevant.
Right. I think I get it. They recontextualize. It's just funny that they wrote
Right.
a big thing about how you need to let music change and grow,
Yeah,
but
that's hilarious.
also have their traditional folk songs. So that album holds the Guinness World Record for the longest album title.
Ah!
It's 552 characters long.
Damn, that's cool. I really dug it.
I remember when this album came out, I remember seeing that album title and being like, oh, that's interesting. And then never listened to it. But I knew that was the other thing I knew about them. I knew Tubthumper and I knew that they had the Guinness World Record for the longest album title.
How
I
funny.
had never listened to the album. I didn't know what it sounded like, but I did know that they had the world record.
And the curiosity finally got the better of you. And here we are.
Well, now I have this motivation
Platform
for
to reason to do it. Yeah.
yeah, where I have to think of bands that I have ever thought, oh, I should listen to them.
I thought boy bands kind of had some Fleetwood Mac vibes,
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that.
which I really dug. The Add Me as a Friend song was very 2008. I
Yeah,
I got a kick out of
so
that.
much of their stuff is so very specifically of the time that it was released.
It's relevant. It's cool. And it's still relevant today. I mean, we've still got that social media thing going on. It was actually pretty advanced, even though the adding of the friend was happening at that time, but the thoughts on it was
I read a review of it that was like, this is just an old man being mad at the internet and all this stuff. But like in the song, he's
no.
saying basically like, if we only communicate with each other online and it's all anonymous and we're hiding behind screen names, it's going to be bad for everybody. And it's like, he was right. Like
Correct.
way ahead of
Exactly.
time. It was cool to have an
Exactly.
optimistic view of social media, but I think that his point is arguable.
But you're wrong.
Right. Even I think he has even more
Yeah.
evidence now.
I agree. And then the ABCDEFG, still chill.
Yeah,
Still
probably the
chanty.
most chill out of the
I thought I wrote this band is pretty hilarious. Dance, Idiot Dance was a riot.
Pickle. I remember being pretty good too.
They're fucking hilarious. Like, they're so smart, and their little one-liners sometimes are just so fucking funny.
Well, and I think they will benefit from repeat listens to be able to pick up on references.
I agree.
Little lines, and
Which
little
I did.
jokes and
I re-listened to a few of their albums a few times because there's a lot to get out of it. There's so much depth that you could easily miss because they're one of those bands, which I love bands that do this. They're another one of those bands that takes really deep, often dark lyrics and puts it behind really happy sounding music. So if you're not fucking paying attention, you're going to be one of those people that calls them a sellout.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you're just not paying attention. It's really your bad.
if your goal is to make people recognize how the system of capitalism basically hurts the people that are involved in it, and you get signed to a major label, and all the people who already think that say that you're sellouts, but you get to go be in front of all these other people that don't already think that, you don't need these people on your side anymore. They're already thinking what you want them to think. So now you don't need to go give them more stuff to, like, more ammunition for stuff they already believe. You got to go get all these other people and convert them. And I really think that was their goal. Whether or not they were successful, whatever. I think they made a dent. I'm sure that they changed some people's mind, or at least gave some people the path to take to go further down that. And that, to me, I don't know. It all seems worthwhile. It seems like they achieved their mission. They broke up in 2012.
Totally agree.
But I didn't find anything that seemed like a big beef or anything like that. It just seemed like they got what they wanted out of the band and they went on to do other things. Even that chunk in 2005, when half of the band left, it didn't seem like there was bad blood. Alice Nutter went to go, she writes for TV now. There's a couple of series that she has written on that are currently, like, I was like, oh, I'm going to go watch that now because she wrote.
I didn't know
on
that. That's badass. Yeah, I was wondering what they all went and did.
So I went, and that was another thing. That was the other rabbit hole I was going down this morning. She went to write for TV.
Because as anarchists and anti-capitalists, we still have to make a living
eat.
or we're going to starve. Yeah, exactly. Or just squat and try to grow your own food. But when the older you get, the harder that kind of stuff is.
Yeah.
Like on your body and shit. It's just way harder to be squatting and shit.
Dunstan, he just released, and again, why I think this is going to be the year of Wamba, he just released that new documentary that's about basically their
new
entire
polished
rise
version of it.
Yeah, it's not like the story of Chumbawamba as much as I think it's like his coming to terms with being a 60-year-old anarchist, former punk rocker with a huge, like his story a little bit. And Danbert, No Bacon, he doesn't live in the UK anymore. He lives in Washington. And I was just on his website, and he does like video blogs, and he's still releasing music. He's releasing music under the name Danbert, No Bacon, and the Axis of Dissent.
I think my favorite album might have been Get On With It, the live album.
Oh, really? I watched the live YouTube video or whatever, or one of them from 98, Cologne, and it was really good.
Was it the one where they were dressed up in like Halloween costumes?
No, they were dressed pretty formally, like mostly I think wearing black.
Oh, I watched them dressed in Halloween costumes.
That sounds
and the
fun.
whole audience was too. Yeah.
Oh, dude, okay, on ABCDEFG, the main songs I wanted to talk about was Torturing James Hetfield.
Okay.
Did you listen to that one?
I listened to all of them.
I'm okay. Does that one like stick out to your brain at all?
They all were noteworthy on this album. I thought this album was super good.
So it's based on them using Metallica to torture suspected terrorists, and how James Hetfield like came out in support of them using Metallica songs, because it was like sleep deprivation. They'd play Metallica songs super loud so they couldn't sleep. So then when they interrogated them, they had whatever. So the whole song is about torturing and interrogating James Hetfield, which I just thought was really funny. They like are still even, and like this is the point now where they have that now they're a bigger band, but they're still they got beef with everybody, man. They had beef with everybody.
Okay, to be fair, everybody had beef with James Hetfield. Like he was such an annoying presence at that era,
That's true. Like that's a good example of them cleverly drawing attention to something that's messed up, but doing it in a funny and clever way, and also having beef with another artist who is not living up to what they think, that he should be doing. So yeah, Danbert he's still performing under with the Axis of Dissent, and Dunstan, what's his last name? Dunstan Bruce, he has a band called Interrobang. And I listened to a little bit of both of those artists. They're pretty good. Interrobang, I actually think you would like a little bit more. The Danbert stuff is a little more like folky. I only listened to a couple songs. I wasn't as into that. Yeah, I do too. I
was really into their final folky albums.
I did too. I thought I actually was so glad that it switched over to that, because I was really getting sick of the
other shit.
Stuff. Yeah.
I actually added one of these songs from ABCDEFG to I have playlists for certain people.
Yeah.
And you're one of those people. When a song reminds me of you, I put it on. And I'm pretty sure I put You Don't Exist on there for you.
Oh, nice. I was actually thinking, I was listening to that song like, oh, this is a really good one.
It seemed like you to me.
Yeah, I appreciate
you
that.
have no friends. You won't be missed. I'm here to tell you that you don't exist.
Yeah, it was nice. I was driving. I know exactly where I was when I was listening to that song, because I thought like, yeah, I like this one. This is a good one.
I think I was driving too.
It's not a song that you would play for everyone that you know. I don't know. That's a message that everybody needs to hear, but I think that one fits.
I thought it was great.
Oh, the last ABCDEFG is not their last album. Do you know what their last actual release was?
What?
It was the Margaret Thatcher EP. Their actual last album was released in 2013 after the band had broken up, and it's called In Memoriam Margaret Thatcher. They wrote and recorded it in 2005, but they released it. They mailed it out to all the people who pre-ordered it in 2005 on the literal day that Margaret Thatcher died. They mailed out this EP. They wrote it in 2005 in the event that when she died, they would send it to everybody.
Genius.
And they
Fucking
did. They mailed it to
geniuses.
everybody when Margaret Thatcher died.
Incredible.
Which, I mean,
that's not on the Spotify, so I didn't hear that one.
I didn't listen to it. It doesn't exist on streaming. It was like a physical thing that they
Sure,
mailed.
that's a special thing that they did. Like, that is amazing. I wish I would have been on the list.
Yeah.
That's genius. That's some They Might Be Giants shit.
Yeah, but like, again, much more politically minded, much more like feather ruffly.
With a purpose.
Much less we're on Tiny Toons Adventures. So that was the actual
pure chaos for no apparent purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, again, this is another one of those bands that persevere simply because they just keep doing it. Like, I feel like so many bands that are friends bands in the past, bands that we've been in the past, could be this level of band easily if we had just continued to make music.
Yeah, and I wonder, they seemed pretty focused on like when they made any decisions, everybody in the band had to agree on the decisions. And like, I think so much of that came out of their anarchist leanings and how they all lived together and stuff. They weren't just a band. They weren't just people that like went into the studio and recorded together. They were really like a unit, which can go one of two directions. It could lead to like huge interpersonal conflict and a bunch of drama and a bunch of fighting. But somehow it seems like for them that even though they broke up or like people left and stuff.
Well, I feel like this points to their authenticity.
Yeah. That like they really meant what
they
were doing.
are legit. Yes, exactly. They are legit anarchists. They legit have it worked out. And I mean, it's impressive. Their whole existence as humans and as an entity, as a band, is so impressive. I have a lot of respect for Chumbawamba, which is not something I ever thought I would say.
You would say. All right, so compare how you felt when I suggested Chumbawamba last time to like after listening to them.
I'm blown the fuck away. Like, I had no idea that I'm happy that we did this band. And after They Might Be Giants, I was so pissed. But this is, I feel the opposite about. Like, I was expecting one thing and got something completely fucking different. My eyes are open to the majesty that is Chumbawamba.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna be annoying about them. I think that
I will too.
I'm gonna be
I'll
like,
recommend
guys,
them to
you
everyone.
don't know, you don't get it. They don't get enough credit for what they did and who they were and like how they went about doing the things they did. The other thing is, you would think it would come down to like, oh, their single sucks. That song is garbage. I still like that song.
Yeah.
I liked it re-listening to it. I've watched the video a bunch of times. I still find that song extremely catchy.
I think I like it more now.
Yeah. So even the thing that should be the like stain on their reputation is like, no, it's still pretty good. Still good too.
They're so good.
I would not recommend listening to it front to back for most people.
I love that album. There are so many good songs on it.
No. I'm saying their entire discography. I don't know that I would sit down and say,
I don't recommend that for any band.
But you can think like, oh, those punk albums, these people will like those albums. The 90s stuff is a lot more like, it'd have to be somebody that's really into 90s alt rock or like alt pop stuff. I don't think I would ever recommend Tubthumper as like, listen to that one and then you're in, The folk stuff, I would recommend almost anybody. That to me has the widest appeal, is the last 4 or 5 albums as a whole.
It has a lot of appeal, but it's not necessarily a very comprehensive snapshot of what this band is or what they do.
I think that's impossible to do in one album. I don't think you can snapshot
I see where your head's at, but I thought a lot of the ones at the beginning that were really all over the place kind of were an okay snapshot because it was all over the place. It had splashes of everything that they were gonna do later and stuff like that, everything that they had already done and everything they were gonna come to do. They have a couple albums in the middle.
So you think Anarchy is maybe a good
it might be
litmus test?
I really liked Anarchy. I mean, I thought the first two had a lot of variety in the songs, but they didn't have as much of the sing-songy shit. But the second album did have some sing-songy shit and had a lot more chick singing. So yeah, probably Anarchy and Ballots maybe would be the most comprehensive ones, or the
I think
ones
that's
with
fair.
the a better snapshot of what all
But
they
it
do.
does feel like you need to do Ballots, Anarchy, and then you got to throw in
Yeah.
one of the folk
To
ones
see what
from
they
the end.
become.
And to me, it doesn't really matter which one. I think I would probably do
Boy bands.
Yeah, I think I would probably do boy bands. It's got 22 songs on it. If you don't find something you like on there,
Yeah.
because that also had a really wide range of. I mean, it's all folk leaning or whatever, but
Yeah.
it did have a wide variety of styles
Mhm.
on there. But I say, dude, go for it. Throw a dart. Pick one of the
Also,
albums.
Get On With It, the live album. I think that would be a really good one to start with too, because it's a live album. They're kind of playing all kinds of shit. So it's kind of a little bit more comprehensive as well. And it was just really fucking good.
So you listened to Get On With It. Did you listen to Show Business, the 90s live album?
Yes. I didn't realize that one was a live album until I was like halfway through it. And I was like, oopsie, listening to a live album on accident, but still really liked it. Like, I didn't stop listening to it once I realized that it wasn't a studio album. You know, I was just like, oh, I like this. So I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, I will probably go back and listen to those too. I made a giant YouTube playlist with a bunch of videos and live performances and stuff. So like,
nice.
I know we're done with this episode, and like I don't
I
have to go
can't
back and
stop.
listen to them. I still want to go.
I'm still like researching Patti Smith.
Yeah,
I love this
I think
shit.
we've done a couple of good ones so far.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, in like surprising ways. Like I think I like both of them more than I anticipated liking.
Yeah,
either of
and they
them.
both connect more than I ever could have imagined. I did not think these two bands would connect at all.
I think putting them in a room together would be a weird.
Oh, I would love that. I bet they would get along super well. I can definitely see Alice and Patti Smith having some really badass conversations, because she seemed like really heavy on the brains.
Well, and I think you were talking about, she said she wasn't a musician or whatever. She's always seen herself as a writer, which I think is, I think that's a similarity between the two of them too.
Yeah,
they view more
exactly, because
like
Patty doesn't think she's a
writing
musician
process.
either. It is.
All right,
very
man. I
interesting.
think we got to know where we're going next.
Okay. So the band I was gonna choose is totally unrelated to all of this, and we probably could find some connections there because we're finding unexpected connections. But the band that I think I'm gonna choose instead of that, instead of my plan, randomly, because of all the connections and everything we've talked about in the documentary that we both just watched, I'm gonna pick the Spice Girls.
How many albums do they have? Dude, this is not the Wheel of Death pick. This is the one we're actually doing.
I legitimately love the Spice Girls. So, like, they've been on my list of bands that I wanted to do anyway.
Right,
and they can't have that many albums. Like, probably 4 or 6.
Yeah, they have 3. They have 3 albums. You
Exactly.
think we can get enough stuff out of 3 albums?
Certainly. I could talk about the Spice Girls all day. I love them.
I am not feeling this. I'm gonna tell you I'm at like a 1 on interest level for doing this next episode.
Well,
you know, I have to pull up to work listening to these albums.
I think you're gonna be pleasantly surprised.
We'll see.
The next band I choose will be more legitimate.
It'll be fine. It'll be fun.
You're the one that chooses the nonsense bands usually.
Yeah.
So for me to choose one is a little bit out of left field.
I just this isn't like, I'm not going to discover something that I don't know that I like. I think I already know it. I will be very surprised if I find something that's like, oh, I really like this.
We'll see.
I already know how I feel about them. So I guess it's an opportunity to expand my horizons.
Exactly. Much like Chumbawamba did for me.
So I kind of had a similar experience. I had thought of like 4. I mean, I have a list of Wheel of Death bands, and I thought like, oh, I'm gonna do that one. And I was like, oh wait, I'm gonna do that one. And then it finally clicked today while I was getting ready for this. So we did Patti Smith, and then we did Bruce Springsteen, right? And to me, they're connected. They're 2 sides of a similar coin. He wrote one of her songs, you know, like they have a history. They're kind of connected together. So I was trying to think of something that would be in the Chumbawamba vein, but it would be somebody that I wouldn't want to listen to all of their stuff. What I settled on was a band that is what everybody thinks Chumbawamba is.
Okay.
So our Wheel of Death entry for this week is going to be Smash Mouth.
One on my list that I'm like, I hope Isaiah doesn't choose this because I fucking hate this shit so much. That makes perfect sense.
Doesn't it make sense though?
It does.
And honestly, I think it's a fair criticism against Chumbawamba that like some of their stuff does kind of sound like Smash Mouth songs. They're a very similar genre for about 2 albums to what Smash Mouth was.
Oh, God.
So I think we'll find some parallels there. They both blew up at the similar times. I think that's where everybody stops with the comparison with Chumbawamba though. And so maybe there's more meat on the Smash Mouth bone than what I expect.
I highly doubt that.
I do too. I don't want to do it, but that's not the point of the Wheel of Death.
Right. So it's interesting with the Spice Girls. They were on the Chumbawamba documentary. There were various occasions where they talked shit about the Spice Girls, and I'm assuming that's because the Spice Girls are a manufactured band.
And they're British too.
Yes, and that they're just puppets for the producers or whoever the fuck's in charge of them. I don't even know. Whoever on the documentary, I don't remember if it was Chumbawamba that was talking shit about the Spice Girls or if it was critics and stuff, like comparing them, or I don't remember the details. I just remember the words Spice Girls being said on multiple occasions. And I was trying to, go in my head and think of, I can see why they're comparing these two in a way that they're supposed to be very different. But the Spice Girls also has a hidden depth, regardless of who was in charge there. I don't know who, and we'll find out. I don't know who's puppeting them, but something special happened with the Spice Girls specifically that doesn't happen with most puppeted bands.
I am glad it's only 4 albums, I'll say that. Thanks for listening to Retro Spectrum. Be sure and leave us a 5-star review and follow along with us on all social media platforms at Retrospectrum Pod. If you like what we do, subscribe to our Patreon at Retrospectrum Pod for bonus episodes, playlists, and access to our Discord. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you next time.
Retrospectrum.